The research vessel Stellar Observer hung motionless against Earth's backdrop, its smooth silver hull reflecting the blue and white swirls of the planet below. Inside the ship's main observation deck, Ambassador Ross pressed his four-fingered hand against the transparent viewing panel, his large eyes widening as he watched another storm system form over the Pacific Ocean. "Incredible," he whispered, making notes on his datapad. "Third major storm system this week, and they continue to thrive down there." The word thrive stuck in his throat, almost impossible to believe despite the evidence before him. The ship's sensors painted a picture that defied conventional wisdom about habitable worlds. Temperature readings jumped wildly from region to region, with some areas experiencing freezing conditions, while others baked in extreme heat. Tectonic activity riddled the planet's crust, causing frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The atmosphere itself was a cocktail of gases that would be considered toxic on most council worlds. Yet there they were, humans, not just surviving, but building cities, exploring their world, and even venturing into space. "Ambassador," called out First Officer Miller from her station, "you might want to see this." Her voice carried the slight musical tone common to their species. "We're picking up their entertainment broadcasts again. They're playing in the snow." Ross moved to her station, mandibles clicking in confusion as he watched the footage. Small humans, children, he had learned, were throwing balls of frozen water at each other, rolling in it, and creating crude sculptures from the substance that should have sent them into emergency hibernation. Instead, they were laughing. "Send another probe to the desert region," Ross ordered, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his usual protocol adherence. "I want to compare survival adaptations between climate zones." The probe's data only deepened the mystery. In the scorching heat of what humans called Death Valley, tourists walked around taking pictures. Their only concessions to the lethal conditions were thin cloth coverings and bottles of water. The readings showed surface temperatures that would burn the feet of any sensible species. "How are they doing this?" Ross muttered, comparing the desert footage with the snow video. "Same species, extreme opposite conditions, yet they're treating both environments as recreational areas." The next transmission from the probe showed a human settlement in the middle of the desert. Air conditioning, the humans called it. They had simply decided that the temperature didn't suit them and used technology to change it. Not planet-wide terraforming, but small, localized bubbles of comfort in defiance of their world's hostile nature. As Ross prepared the first contact protocols, a warning alert flashed across his screen. Another major earthquake had struck a populated region. He watched, expecting scenes of devastation and exodus. Instead, he saw something remarkable. Humans were running toward the damaged areas. Emergency teams were pulling survivors from buildings, setting up temporary shelters, and beginning repairs even as aftershocks continued. "Add this to the contact report," Ross instructed his assistant. "Humans display unprecedented social cohesion in response to environmental threats. Instead of splintering or abandoning affected regions, they appear to strengthen community bonds through shared adversity." The final piece of data that convinced Ross to initiate contact came from a small coastal town. A massive storm was approaching, what humans call a hurricane. Scientists had detected its formation days ago, and it was now clear why humans studied weather patterns so intently. Instead of permanent evacuation, the town had sprung into organized action. They secured buildings, stockpiled supplies, and helped their neighbors prepare. Some even planned to stay, ready to face one of their world's most destructive forces. "Begin transmission of first contact protocols," Ross announced to his crew. "The Council needs to understand what we've discovered here. This isn't just another Deathworld species stubbornly clinging to survival." He paused, watching as the hurricane made landfall, and the humans faced it with remarkable readiness. These humans, they've mastered their world not by conquering it, but by embracing its challenges. They've turned obstacles into opportunities, threats into trials to overcome. As the communication array powered up, Ross made one final note in his report. recommend immediate diplomatic relations. The species that can turn a death world into a home may have much to teach the galaxy about resilience, adaptation, and the true meaning of civilization. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy as the classification committee presented their findings about Earth. The massive circular room, with its high crystal ceiling showing the stars above, held representatives from over 300 spacefaring species. Today, they all focused on the holographic display of a single blue planet spinning slowly in the center of the chamber. "The evidence is clear," announced head classifier Jones, his tentacles waving as he gestured to the display. "Earth meets all criteria for a Class 12 Death World designation." The chamber erupted in murmurs and clicks of surprise. Only 11 other planets in known space held such a classification, and none of them had produced a spacefaring civilization. The display shifted to show a series of images: a massive tornado tearing through a city, a volcano spewing ash into the sky, waves higher than buildings crashing against a coast, and a blizzard burying everything in white. With each image, the council members' expressions grew more concerned. "The planet experiences temperature swings that would kill most species," Jones continued, bringing up a temperature map. "From poles that freeze water solid to deserts that could cook an egg on bare rock. The atmosphere itself contains oxygen, a highly reactive and dangerous gas that would be considered toxic on most worlds." A representative from the peaceful water worlds of the calm sector raised a fin. "How do they survive their oceans? Our scans show regular killer waves, deadly currents, and areas of extreme pressure." The answer came in the form of a video showing human submarines and deep-sea research stations. "They don't just survive their oceans," Jones explained, "they explore them. They've built vessels that can withstand pressures that would crush most of our ships. They study the deep-sea creatures that share their world, many of which are apex predators." The display changed again, showing a list that scrolled on and on. "These are the diseases, viruses, and bacteria present on Earth. The humans live in a constant evolutionary arms race with these organisms. Instead of dying out, they've developed medical science to combat them, turning their struggle into progress." A representative from a high-gravity world leaned forward. "What about their planetary crust? Our sensors detect constant movement." "Ah, yes." Jones brought up a new diagram. "Their planet's surface is broken into massive plates that move and crash into each other. This causes earthquakes, creates mountains, and triggers volcanic eruptions. The humans have built cities right on top of these plates. They've developed buildings that can sway with the Earth's movement instead of breaking." The council chamber grew quiet as images of human cities appeared. Massive structures of steel and glass built in every kind of environment. Deserts, tundra, rainforests, mountains, humans had found ways to live in them all. "Most concerning," Jones continued, "is their relationship with danger itself. When faced with a deadly environment, instead of avoiding it, they often choose to visit it for fun." He showed clips of humans climbing frozen waterfalls, jumping out of flying vehicles, diving with large predators, and running toward storms to study them. "This brings us to our most remarkable finding," Jones said, his voice growing serious. "The very conditions that make Earth a Class 12 death world appear to have driven human development. Their need to overcome environmental challenges has pushed their technology, medicine, and science forward at an incredible pace." The final image showed a simple house. Inside, humans had created perfect temperature control, clean water on demand, and protection from the elements. Outside, a storm raged and snow piled high, but the humans seemed completely unconcerned, gathering around a table to share a meal. "We recommend classifying Earth as a Class 12 death world," Jones concluded, but with a unique notation. "The humans haven't merely survived their world's hostile conditions, they've turned those very conditions into catalysts for advancement. They don't see Earth as a death world. To them, it's simply home." As the council members began their deliberations, The holographic Earth continued its slow spin in the chamber center, looking deceptively peaceful from space. But now, every being in the room understood that beneath those swirling white clouds and blue oceans lay a world that would kill most of them in minutes, and a species that called that deadly paradise home. Mark Thompson stood at the edge of the frozen lake, watching his breath-formed clouds in the crisp morning air. Behind him, 3 alien visitors huddled in their thermal suits, their environmental systems humming loudly in the quiet forest. He smiled as he pulled out his ice drill, remembering how they had gasped when he stepped out of the cabin wearing just a warm jacket and boots. "The ice is about 2 feet thick here," he explained, starting to drill. "Perfect for fishing." The aliens watched in horror as he created a hole in what they considered a death trap. To them, a frozen lake was an environmental hazard. To Mark, it was Tuesday morning. The aliens had arrived at his Alaska guide station 3 days ago, part of a galactic study on human survival techniques. So far, they had been amazed by everything from his wood-burning stove to the way he could predict weather changes by watching the clouds. "But how can you be sure the ice won't break?" asked the tallest alien, whom Mark nicknamed Blue because of his shimmering skin color. The alien's sensor equipment had been running constant safety checks since they arrived. Mark tapped the ice with his boot. "Years of experience. You learn to read the ice, understand its sounds and colors. Clear black ice like this is the strongest." He set up his fishing gear while explaining how humans had learned to not just survive in the cold, but to find food and even enjoy winter activities. As if on cue, a moose emerged from the tree line across the lake. The aliens' environmental suits let out warning beeps as their sensors detected the massive animal. "Is that not a dangerous predator?" whispered the smallest alien, Green. Mark chuckled. "That's just a moose. Herbivore, but yes, dangerous if you don't respect its space. Like most things on Earth, it's about understanding and adapting." He watched the moose drink from a hole in the ice, completely unbothered by the cold that had his alien guests triple-checking their thermal readings. Later that day, as they hiked back to the cabin, a storm began brewing. The alien suits started flashing warnings about temperature drops and increasing wind speed. Mark read the sky and led them to a small cave he knew well. "We have a saying here," Mark said as he quickly gathered wood and started a fire, his movements sure and practiced. "There's no such thing as bad weather, just bad preparation." The aliens watched in fascination as he turned the dangerous situation into a comfortable camp in minutes. As they sat around the fire, Mark pulled out some tea and trail mix from his pack. The aliens were amazed that he carried so little gear compared to their extensive survival equipment. "You don't need much if you know what you're doing," he explained. "Humans have always been about working with our environment, not against it." The storm raged outside, but inside the cave, Mark told stories about growing up in Alaska. He described learning to track animals, read weather patterns, and find edible plants. To him, these weren't survival skills. They were just part of life. "Yesterday, you said humans do this for fun?" asked Blue, still struggling with the concept. They had watched videos of mountain climbing and skiing that morning, and the aliens couldn't understand why humans would deliberately seek out dangerous conditions. Mark nodded, sipping his tea. "The challenges make us feel alive. Each time we overcome something difficult, we learn and grow stronger." He pointed to the storm outside. "Take this weather. To you, it's a deadly threat. To us, it's an opportunity to test ourselves, to improve our skills, to understand our world better." As the evening deepened, Mark showed them how to make snowshoes from branches and twine, a backup plan in case the storm lasted longer than expected. The aliens were shocked by how quickly humans could adapt and create tools from natural materials. "Most species look for ways to avoid challenges," Mark said, demonstrating how to tie the snowshoe bindings. "We look for ways to meet them head-on. Earth isn't just our home, it's our teacher. Every challenge it presents is a lesson in becoming stronger, smarter, more adaptable." The storm began to ease as night fell. Mark stepped out of the cave, brushed off the snow, and pointed to the sky where the northern lights had begun to dance. The aliens stood in awe of the atmospheric phenomenon, their suits labeled as radiation disturbance. You see, Mark smiled. Sometimes the most dangerous things in nature are also the most beautiful. That's something we humans learned a long time ago. The United Earth Council chamber in Geneva fell silent as the alien delegation made their announcement. Their tall, slender forms towered over the human representatives as they formally presented their recommendation. Earth should be evacuated. Humans, they argued, deserved a safer home among the stars. Ambassador Ross watched from the side, noting how the humans didn't shout or argue. Instead, Council President White simply smiled and stood up. "Thank you for your concern," she said, her voice calm and measured. "We have a counter-proposal. Before making such a significant recommendation, perhaps you should experience Earth firsthand." The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. One of them, wearing the purple robes of the Safety Commission, stepped forward. "Experience Earth? But our environmental suits can only do so much against your world's hazards." "Exactly," White replied. "We propose a 1-month immersion program. 5 locations, 5 different Earth environments. Let us show you why we choose to stay." She gestured to a large screen showing images of various Earth locations. No diplomatic quarters, no artificial environments. Live as we live. The aliens huddled together, their translators working overtime as they discussed the proposal. Finally, they turned back. "We accept," announced their leader. "But we choose the locations based on our safety data." White nodded, then revealed their first destination, the Great Barrier Reef Research Station. The alien delegates' sensor appendages twitched nervously at the thought of being surrounded by Earth's deadly oceans. 2 days later, the first group of aliens arrived at the underwater facility. Their protective suits hummed constantly, measuring pressure, analyzing water composition, and tracking the movements of nearby sea life. The human scientists working there barely noticed the ocean around them as they went about their daily tasks. "How can you work with such thin barriers between you and the crushing depths?" asked one alien observer, touching the transparent walls with a trembling appendage. Dr. Reed, the station's lead researcher, laughed. "These walls, they're stronger than they look. We've learned to build with the pressure, not against it." She pulled up a screen showing the station's design. "See how the structure curves? That's inspired by seashells. Nature already solved this problem millions of years ago." The second team landed in the Amazon rainforest. Their environmental suits struggled with the humidity, and their sensors went crazy trying to catalog all the potentially lethal plants and animals. Their guide, an indigenous botanist named River, showed them how humans had learned to identify which plants could kill and which could heal. "Every danger here has taught us something," River explained while brewing tea from leaves that the alien sensors identified as toxic. "What you see as deadly, we see as medicine. It's all about understanding." The third group faced the Sahara Desert. They watched in disbelief as their human hosts set up solar panels and atmospheric water collectors, turning the deadly heat into power and the dry air into drinking water. "You don't just survive here," one alien noted with growing respect. "You innovate." Team 4 visited Mount Everest Base Camp. Their suits warned constantly about the thin air and cold temperatures, while human climbers prepared for summit attempts with just oxygen tanks and warm clothes. The aliens watched in amazement as humans adapted to altitude sickness, treating it as a simple inconvenience rather than a lethal threat. The final group experienced a volcanic research station in Iceland. They trembled as the ground rumbled beneath them, but the human scientists barely looked up from their work. "The tremors tell us what's happening below," explained the lead geologist. "It's like Earth is talking to us. We just had to learn how to listen." As the first week ended, the aliens began sending surprising reports back to their superiors. They described humans teaching their children to swim in the same oceans they feared, building homes on the slopes of active volcanoes, and treating deadly storms as fascinating weather events to be studied rather than fled from. Ambassador Ross collected these reports, adding them to his growing file on human resilience. The evacuation recommendation was looking less certain with each passing day. The aliens were beginning to understand something crucial. Earth's dangers hadn't broken humanity. They had forged them into something remarkable. 2 weeks into their Earth experience, the alien diplomats found their carefully maintained composure crumbling. In the Arctic Research Station, Ambassador Green woke to find his environmental suit had failed during the night. Panic seized him until he realized he was still alive, wrapped in something humans called a down blanket. The station's backup power had kicked in so smoothly that the humans hadn't even woken up. "You get used to it," said Tom, the station's engineer, serving him a hot drink called coffee. "Up here, you have to expect things to go wrong. That's why we always have backups for our backups." He explained how the station's design came from decades of learning from failures, each problem solved making them better prepared for the next. Meanwhile, in the Amazon rainforest, Ambassador Blue was having a revelation of his own. After days of watching humans move through the dense jungle, he had reluctantly agreed to remove parts of his protective gear. The sensation of humid air on his skin had been terrifying at first, but now he found himself noticing things his sensors had missed: the subtle sound patterns that warned of approaching storms, the slight changes in air pressure that meant weather was turning. "It's not about dominating the environment," his guide River explained while showing him how to find clean water and plant stems. "It's about becoming part of it. Humans learned this over thousands of years." Blue watched a group of children playing in a nearby stream, their laughter mixing with the sounds of the forest. They seemed completely at ease in a place his species considered a death zone. At the deep-sea research facility, Ambassador Red had stopped checking his safety monitors every few minutes. The constant presence of crushing pressure and dangerous marine life had become almost normal. He found himself fascinated by how the human researchers treated the ocean's dangers with respect rather than fear. "Look at this," called Dr. Reed, showing him footage from an underwater camera. A massive shark swam past their facility. Red's instincts screamed danger, but the humans watched with excitement. "We've named her Big Betty. She's been patrolling this reef for decades. Thanks to her, we've learned so much about marine predator behavior." In the volcanic research station, Ambassador Purple experienced her first earthquake. As the ground shook, she watched in amazement as the building swayed safely, its design allowing it to move with the earth rather than resist it. The human researchers barely paused their work, treating the tremor as routinely as a passing cloud. "The earth is always moving," explained Dr. Stone, the lead geologist. "Fighting against that is pointless. So we learn to build things that can move too." He showed her designs spanning centuries, each generation of humans adding their knowledge to handle increasingly challenging conditions. The most profound change happened to Ambassador Yellow in the urban study group. Cities had always seemed like humanity's attempt to shield themselves from their deadly world. Instead, he discovered they were monuments to adaptation. Humans had created spaces that could withstand everything from tornadoes to earthquakes, while still remaining open to the nature they came from. He watched as a thunderstorm rolled through the city. Lightning struck a building's protection system, the electricity harmlessly channeled away. Rain flooded special collection systems, being stored for dry periods. The humans had turned their world's threats into resources. During their third week, the ambassadors met virtually to share their experiences. Each had expected to document the foolishness of living on such a dangerous world. Instead, they found themselves sharing stories of human ingenuity, of solutions evolved over generations, of a species that had turned survival into an art form. "They don't even see it as remarkable," Ambassador Green said, describing how the Arctic station handled a week-long blizzard. "To them, it's just life. They're children," Blue added. "They teach them to swim before they can walk, in water that would dissolve my outer membrane in minutes." Red shared footage from the deep sea lab. They've built their research stations to withstand pressures that would crush our best ships, and they act like it's normal. As their month on Earth neared its end, each ambassador had stopped seeing the planet as a death trap. They began to understand why humans would choose to stay. Earth's dangers hadn't just shaped human technology and adaptation. They had molded human consciousness itself. The very things that made Earth deadly had made humanity resourceful, resilient, and uniquely capable of thriving where other species could barely survive. The observation room at the United Earth Council building buzzed with activity as humans and aliens gathered to review a month's worth of data about human adaptation. Ambassador Ross stood before the large display screen, watching video clips from around the world. Each one showed humans not just surviving, but thriving in conditions that should have killed them. "I think we've been asking the wrong question," Ross said, addressing the mixed group of human and alien scientists. "We kept asking how humans survive Earth. We should have been asking how Earth created humans." He played a clip of a human rescue team running into a burning building. "No other species we know would willingly enter a fire to save others." Dr. Harris, a human evolutionary biologist, stepped forward. "Earth didn't give us a choice," she explained, pulling up ancient human migration maps. "Our ancestors faced ice ages, droughts, floods, and predators. Each challenge changed us. Those who survived passed on not just their genes, but their solutions." The display showed brain scans of humans solving problems. "See how many areas light up." Dr. Harris pointed to the colorful images. "Most species developed specific responses to specific threats. Humans developed general problem-solving abilities instead. Earth threw so many different challenges at us that we had to become adaptable." A clip played of children in a playground, taking turns trying to climb a tall wall. They failed repeatedly but kept trying new approaches until they succeeded. The alien observers were stunned by this behavior. "You encourage your young to face difficulty?" asked one alien scientist, their translation device struggling to convey their mix of horror and fascination. "We call it learning through play," explained a human teacher who worked with the children. "Every time they overcome a challenge, their confidence grows. They learn that problems have solutions if you keep trying different approaches." The screen showed more examples: mountain climbers helping each other up sheer cliffs, scientists testing dangerous new medicines on themselves, explorers venturing into unknown caves. Each video demonstrated not just physical adaptation, but psychological resilience. "Earth taught us that failure isn't final," Dr. Harris continued. "When a storm destroys a city, we rebuild. When a disease threatens us, we research until we find a cure. Earth's challenges forced us to develop something unique, hope combined with determination." Ambassador Ross pulled up data from his species' first observations of Earth. "We thought your optimism was madness at first. How could any species remain positive while living on a world that constantly tries to kill them?" He shook his head, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Now we understand. Optimism is your survival strategy." The display switched to scenes from different human communities facing natural disasters. In each one, people worked together, shared resources, and supported each other. "Earth's dangers didn't just shape our bodies and minds," added a human sociologist. "They shaped our societies. We learned that we survive better together than alone." In the corner, a group of alien diplomats watched a particularly striking scene: a human settlement in the aftermath of a tornado. Instead of abandoning the dangerous area, the community was already cleaning up and planning to rebuild, stronger than before. "They're laughing," one diplomat noted in disbelief. "Their homes are destroyed, and they're laughing while they work." "Humor is another adaptation," Dr. Harris explained. "It helps us cope with stress and maintain social bonds during difficult times. Earth taught us to find joy even in hardship." The final presentation showed a timeline of human history, marked with countless disasters, challenges, and threats. But alongside each obstacle was an innovation, a solution, or a new understanding that made humans stronger. "Earth isn't just our home. concluded Dr. Harris, looking around the room at the mixed audience. It's our teacher, our testing ground, and our partner in evolution. Every challenge it presents is an opportunity to become better. That's why we stay. That's why we call this dangerous world home. Ambassador Ross watched the human scientists gathering their notes, chatting, and joking despite the serious discussion. He finally understood that Earth hadn't just made humans physically capable of surviving its challenges. It had created a species that saw obstacles as opportunities, danger as adventure, and problems as puzzles to be solved. Earth had forged humanity's spirit as much as their bodies. The great hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Ross approached the central platform. After 3 months of study, 1 month of direct experience, and countless hours of debate, it was time to present their final assessment of Earth and its human inhabitants. The holographic display activated, showing Earth in all its deadly beauty. Storms swirled across its surface, volcanoes glowed in the night, and the ever-shifting tectonic plates continued their endless dance. Around the chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds watched, waiting to hear if they would recommend the evacuation of humanity from their dangerous home. Honorable Council, Ross began, his voice steady. We came to Earth believing we would find a species trapped on a Deathworld, needing rescue. What we found instead changes everything we thought we knew about planetary classification. The display shifted to show humans in various environments, diving in deep oceans, climbing frozen mountains, studying active volcanoes, and dancing in the rain. These are not the actions of a trapped species, Ross continued. These are the choices of a species that has turned danger into opportunity. He played a recording from their time on Earth. A young human child fell while learning to walk, got up laughing, and tried again. From their earliest moments, humans faced their world's challenges with determination and joy. What we see as deadly, they see as a chance to grow stronger. The council murmured as Ross displayed their research findings. Earth's gravity shaped their bones and muscles. Its oxygen-rich atmosphere enabled their complex brains. Its varied environments forced them to become adaptable. Its dangers taught them to innovate. He paused, letting the information sink in. Earth didn't just challenge humans, it created them. Ambassador Green stepped forward, still wearing the simple jacket he had learned to use in the Arctic. I removed my environmental suit during our study, he announced, causing gasps among the council members. I learned that feeling the wind and rain directly helped me understand why humans love their world. They don't just survive Earth, they embrace it. The display showed scenes from their month-long experiment, alien diplomats learning to fish on frozen lakes, shelter in rainforests, and study ocean life. Each image demonstrated how their fear had slowly turned to understanding. Therefore, Ross continued, we propose a new classification. Earth should not be labeled as a death world, but as a crucible world, a planet that forges stronger, more resilient species through its challenges. The chamber erupted in discussion as this new concept was introduced. Mark Thompson's image appeared on the display, standing on his Alaskan mountaintop at sunrise. Humans have a saying, Ross quoted, smooth seas don't make skilled sailors. Earth's challenges haven't weakened humanity. They'd strengthened it. Each disaster overcome, each danger mastered, has pushed them to evolve not just physically, but mentally and socially. The evidence was undeniable. Videos play showing humans responding to natural disasters, not with panic, but with organized cooperation. Communities rebuilding after storms, scientists developing solutions to environmental challenges, children learning to swim in rough seas and climb tall mountains. The humans have a word, home, Ross explained. It means more than just a place to live. It means belonging. Earth isn't just the planet humans inhabit. It's part of who they are. He showed images of human art depicting Earth's beauty, even its dangerous aspects transformed into something magnificent through their eyes. Ambassador Blue, who had spent time in the rainforest, stepped forward. I used to pity humans for living on such a dangerous world. Now I understand. Earth's dangers are its gifts. Every challenge it presents is an opportunity for growth. The final vote was unanimous. Earth would be reclassified as the first recognized crucible world in the galaxy. The evacuation recommendation was not just withdrawn. It was replaced with a recommendation for other species to study how Earth had forged humanity. As the council session ended, Ross stood with Mark Thompson on that same Alaskan mountaintop where their journey of understanding had begun. Below them, a storm was brewing over the valley, lightning flickering in the clouds. But like the humans around him, Ross no longer saw it as something to fear. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Mark said, watching the approaching storm with appreciation. "Earth is always teaching us something new, if we're willing to learn." Ross nodded, finally understanding why humans chose to call this dangerous, beautiful world their home. Earth hadn't just given humans a place to live. It had given them the strength, wisdom, and courage to truly live.